What's up YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be refurbishing and upgrading the front sway bar on the 100 series Land Cruiser. Just like 90% of Land Cruiser owners out there, when I first got my Land Cruiser, I lifted it and took it off-roading immediately. And that was cool for a while until I noticed the drivability of the Land Cruiser went way down. So in the next few weeks, I'm going to be addressing the issues with the front suspension that has been caused by the lift. So anyways, here's what I'm installing today. First of all, we have these guys. Now, these guys are the extended sway bar end links for the 100 series Land Cruiser from Tailor, and this is a pretty nice piece. What's nice about it is obviously it is extended. The factory ones are, I think they're a little shorter. I'm not sure exactly how much, but also they come with the bushings already in here. So if you look, we've already got the bushing in the eyelet, and then of course we've got two brand new ones right here. And from what I remember, the bushings on my factory sway bar end links are completely cracked. They're all dried up, they're cracked, they're probably not really doing their job. Since I'm already changing out to all new end links and bushings, I'm also going to be changing out these guys. This guy is the sway bar bushing. It's the one that actually holds the sway bar up towards the chassis. These go right on top of the torsion bar, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not sure the condition of the ones that are in the Land Cruiser right now, but I figure they're not too expensive and they're pretty easy to change. Why not? So you might ask, why not just change out the bushings in the stock end link? Why get a whole different setup that costs extra money? Well, the deteriorated bushings in the stock end links is a part of the problem of the drivability. However, when I cranked up the height on the Land Cruiser, it caused the geometry of the sway bar to go crazy out of whack. So I'll show you once we get underneath the Land Cruiser what I'm talking about. All the tools and the parts that I use in this video will be listed in the description down below, so make sure you go ahead and check that out. And as usual, at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you my thoughts and tips if you were planning to do this job yourself, what would make your life a little bit easier. Anyhow, let's get started. So let's take a look at what underneath the Land Cruiser looks like. As you can see right here, the bushings on the top and bottom of the sway bar are pretty much gone. I can't see this one down here, but I assume it's probably around the same condition. The other bushing, which is this guy right here, I don't know if you can see that, looks like it's a little bit deformed. It's not in its best shape. It definitely doesn't look like the new one that I have purchased from Toyota, so that's a good thing that we're changing that out. Now, I'm sure most of you guys already know this, but just in case you didn't know how sway bars worked, what they do is they basically even the load on left and right. So basically these guys connect the lower control arms on both the driver's side and the passenger side, so when you're cornering, the vehicle is very stable. So if you're like me and you raised your Land Cruiser without extending these sway bar end links, you're basically putting tension on all the bushings, the sway bar itself, this guy right here. So what that does is it's basically like having a stiffer spring in the front, so it makes the ride pretty much stiffer. And if you've ever gone over like a washboard type terrain at a little bit of speed, you'll notice like it's super bumpy, and it's like, well, is my suspension working or not? And some of it is caused by the sway bar. So hopefully when I install this guy, it raises the sway bar back up to its normal position, and that way it'll let both sides of the suspension work as they should. So first of all, let's get the end link out, and the nut on top is a 14 bolt nut, also 14s. Some PB blaster just to loosen everything. You can see how this guy is like very deformed, cracking on the edges.
and just not a happy camper. You can see kind of like how it's like wavy almost, where one side's higher than the other side because of just age, and at the end of its life I went to go lift the truck, so it needs to be replaced. So you're also going to wonder how I'm going to fit the longer end link on here when the sway bar is pushed this far down, like it doesn't really kind of want to go up. What you're going to have to do, and what I'm going to have to do, is loosen the end link on the passenger side as well, so that way the sway bar can swivel up and down freely. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So now I've unhooked the other side of the sway bar. It should just push up like this. If not, you can hit it a little bit and it should swing up just like that. Now, factory, I'm assuming the sway bar should sit right about there, but obviously it went way down because of the lift. So now that we got the sway bar out of the way, we can easily remove the sway bar end link. There we go. And of course the bottom bush also is kind of deformed and cracking at the edges. Very interesting.
Just real quick, I wanted to show you guys the difference between the original factory sway bar end link and the Tailor one. Obviously, we've got a length difference. The factory one, let's see, from the eyelet all the way to the top, right under 4 inches, whereas the Tailor one, the eyelet all the way to the top, right under 5.5 inches. So we've got about 1.5 inches of difference, which is good. Because, you know, that's going to compensate for the difference in geometry from the lift. And also you can see the bushings in the eyelet. The factory one actually was not too bad. It didn't crack or you know, deform as I thought it would. The Tailor one has a very similar bushing. In the eyelet, I think these guys are OEM, if not very, very similar, and they are still rubber. So that's going to be really, really important. I'll tell you why later. The top rubber bushings, you can see the OEM ones are pretty deformed. Not only are they cracking outside, but you can see that the shape is just deformed. It's not a perfect donut anymore. It's like a wobbly donut. And of course, the brand new ones still come with the rubber bushings, but they're not taller. Once they squish down, they will be roughly about the same height, but that's just because they're brand new. So these guys are gonna go in right now. Now, to install the new sway bar end link, what you'll need to do is remove the nut at the top, take off the first bracket and the first bushing, because remember, that's how the sway bar is going to get in. And we're going to put this guy in right there. So before I put the end link back into the sway bar, don't forget you still have the other side to do. So what I'm going to do now is put the other end link on the other side, and then we'll be able to bolt up everything very, very easily. Now I have the sway bar end link, the new one, replaced on the passenger side, and I have the end link on that side barely into the sway bar hole itself. I didn't bolt it down. I didn't put any of the top bushings or the top washer in, because what I need to do, if I put those in, I wouldn't be able to get this side in. Remember, they're all connected, and this side moves up, the other side moves up. So it's barely in there right now. So what I'm going to do right now is try to put this side in. Once this side goes in, I'll put the bushing and the spacers, then the nuts. So hopefully the other side doesn't fall out, but if it does, I'll figure out something. So let's push this in. There we go. So that's kind of in. Let me go check the other side and make sure it's okay. Okay, so I made sure the other side didn't fall out, and I think it was barely hanging on, just enough for me to get this guy in, and everything worked out really well. Next up, of course, we're going to put the bushing in, the washer in, and then the new nut.
Now again, we're just going to tighten this by hand because we've still got the sway bar bushing to do itself. And after that, I want to make sure the suspension settles before I tighten everything down. Next up, we're going to change out this bushing right here. This is the one that holds the sway bar to the frame itself. Now it looks like we've got a bolt that's a 12 millimeter and also a nut that's a 12 millimeter right here. And that's all that holds it in. So you've got one on this side and then one on the other side as well. So let me see if I can get to these guys without removing the torsion bar. I'm not sure if we can, but we'll see. The other bolt, the one that's closer to the front of the vehicle right here, is actually a bolt going from the top side of the car down. So that's why I have my hand right here with my ratchet. We're gonna see if we can take that one out. The space is pretty tight right here. That's why my other wrench got stuck, but it does look like it's loosening. Once I'm able to loosen this bolt as well, I should be able to slide the bracket all the way inwards towards the camera and free my wrench. So let's see what happens. Should be able to slide. There we go. And then see if this guy wants to come loose. And finally, we are at the sway bar bushing itself, and it looks like, what is this stuff? Somebody put some duct tape in here, maybe? What is this? Interesting. I'll check that out. And then this is the driver's side. A lot of dirt. Now that I got the old stuff out, let's compare it with the new stuff. So as you can see, the old sway bar bushing, even though it didn't look too bad when it was in the car, it does look pretty messed up. And you can see there's actually a crack here at the top from, you know, just years of use and heat and mud and water and all that stuff. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but if you look directly at it, you can see the bushing is actually deformed. It's pressing over to like this side right here, like that. And it's just it's past its sell by date. Compared to the new one is nice and tight. Obviously it doesn't squish out like that. This one is very, very firm still, but they are technically the same bushing. This one, the new one, actually looks a little smaller too. I don't know if they changed the design or whatnot, but it looks like there's a little less rubber, or I mean, maybe the rubber is deformed from the old one, but the place where it matters, where the bracket goes into, looks exactly the same. Yeah, definitely this guy was past its time. And then for some reason, this guy looked like it had some duct tape put inside of it. I don't know if somebody did that previously, maybe a previous owner or something like that. This one did not have the duct tape. I don't think so. Nope, it did not. But I guess they try to tape it up and use it some more. But yeah, this one also, you can see it's just super deformed. The top is really, really flared out compared to the bottom, where it is not supposed to be. So I did get a chance to clean up the brackets as well, just to look a little bit cleaner. Now, when you're doing this, if you guys going to attempt this, make sure you remember which side of the bracket goes where, because these brackets are different. You've got a regular hole on one side, and you've got the welded on nut, I guess, on the other side. And also you've got one side that's clean and the other side that has this flange for the bushing. And from what I remember, this one is the passenger side one and this one is the driver's side one. So the flange always goes towards the outside of the vehicle, so when we put it in the cruiser, it's going to go like this. You've got the threaded nut in the front and the regular hole in the back with the flange on the outside. So keep that in mind. Now I'm just going to put these guys in and see how hard or how easy it'll be. Actually, it looks like there is some type of lining on the inside of the new bushing as well. So this guy with the lining falling out is not duct tape that someone tried to put in there. It was actually the lining from the factory bushing that's slowly coming apart. So this one you can still see has the same type of lining on the inside. I cleaned off as much of the sway bar that I think I'll need where the bushing goes, and then I cleaned a little bit on the frame where the bracket goes. So now let's put this bushing in. And if you guys remember, the bushing, the opening, the slit right here, faces the back of the vehicle. So that guy's in right there. Now we've got this bracket. I'm gonna slide in onto the bushing again with the flange facing the outside of the vehicle. Get those guys mixed up. Definitely a little bit more challenging now that the bushings are nice and tight, but I think I kind of got it. So what I'm going to do next is kind of put the, well, actually, you know what? I'll put the other bushing in on the driver's side first to where it's kind of already in place, and then I'll start bolting stuff down. So as you can see, the sway bar bushings are installed and the bolts are installed correctly. On the sway bar, there's not much variance because if you can see right here, this is where the sway bar starts to turn. So the bushing goes on the straight part of the sway bar right before it turns. So this is the passenger side, and you can see this is the driver's side. It is also the same thing right before it turns. So there's no, you can't accidentally have the sway bar shift to the left or shift to the right. It kind of self-centers itself. So now that the sway bar is secured, don't forget we still need to tighten the end link. And what I did before I got down here to look at this guy is I made sure the suspension was settled. So what that means is the wheel is straight. I move the Land Cruiser forward and back a couple times just to make sure everything's leveled and everything's right where it's supposed to be before I tighten these guys down. Now the torque specs for the eyelet bolt is 38 foot-pounds. For the nut at the top where the bushing is 18 foot-pounds. So let me go ahead and do those up right now. So there we have it. The sway bar end link is tight. Now there was an issue with the torque specs. Now if you remember, I said the torque specs down here was 38 foot-pounds according to the factory service manual, which was fine. But the nut at the top right there, they specified for 18 foot-pounds, and I got it to about like 9 foot-pounds, and the bushing was already like super compressed. So I backed it off. I got it to where the bushing was compressed, but it didn't spill out of the washer, and I kind of just left it at that. I'm not sure if the bushings that Tailor supplied are a different firmness compared to the OEM, but I didn't feel like I was going to be able to get 18 foot-pounds of torque on the little nut at the top without completely destroying these bushings. So I think I'm going to leave them at that for now. I mean, if you guys have any experience with this
setup, let me know in the comments down below.
So that is it, guys. That is the install 100% complete. Now, I did get a chance to drive the Land Cruiser around the block really quick, and it does drive a lot better. As far as driving impressions go, the Land Cruiser does feel a lot more relaxed on the road. So what I mean by relaxed is it's not as nervous, it doesn't feel as stiff. Going over bumps in the road or railroad tracks, it doesn't throw the suspension off. The suspension is actually going up and down as it's supposed to, absorbing most of the shocks. Now, this is just a road test. I haven't got a chance to take it out on dirt yet, but hopefully that will change soon. If you're planning to do the same job on your Land Cruiser or your LX, here's a couple tips that might make your life just a little bit easier. Tip number one has to do with installing the swaybar endlinks. Now, as you saw in the video just right now, I installed the endlinks onto the control arm and then tried to put the swaybar onto the endlink. Well, there's an easier way. Turns out if you put the endlink into the swaybar first, on both sides of course, and then swing both of the endlinks into the control arms, it's a lot easy to get the bolts in, if you're doing it by yourself, of course. Tip number two, the swaybar bushings themselves, you gotta make sure that the brackets are facing the outside. So, just like I showed you in the video, make sure the flanges are towards the outside of the vehicle. The bolt that goes from the bottom upwards is towards the back of the Land Cruiser, and the one that goes from top to bottom is towards the front of the Land Cruiser. Also, the slit in the bushing has to face backwards and not forwards. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are looking to do the same job on your Land Cruiser or LX, all the tools and parts that I use in this video are listed in the description down below, so make sure you go ahead and check that out. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.